Hello there, and welcome back to episode 3 of our Poor Man's Road to Glory Ultimate Team series. We've got a full Premier League team with two centerpieces that will be here for a long time, I think, with Delo and Nunez. We probably need to replace Gravenberg because I didn't get to complete the other evolution for him, but I've also missed out on quite a few other evolutions, I think now. I was going to try and put Tierney in a left back S evolution that came out. I don't know if it's still possible, but there's just so many evolutions getting churned out right now that I can't keep up, and I don't think I'll be able to keep up. So these games are from last weekend I recorded these, and so will tomorrow's games be. This episode's games are just purely squad battles. Tomorrow's will be purely div rivals. I'm actually beginning to enjoy Ultimate Team now a bit. Now that I've got a full team. But I still need chemistry stars. I've been on the back foot for division rivals. My team is just not good enough, and I'm also not that good, but I'm just losing the edge where I can be scoring more goals and playing better and getting people to rage quit quicker. But I'm just not playing there because I haven't got that edge, and I think you get that from chemistry styles. But I'm a bit conservative with dishing out the chemistry styles that I have, and I can't even afford to buy like the shadows and the catalysts right now. I can't spend 5k on those, especially if I give it to like a player that ends up being like, we get lucky with a pack and we upgrade him, and then you don't have the chemistry style and you just wasted 5k down the drain. We won't make much progress this episode and the next, purely because it's just games, and it'll be like that for every week. That's not really the point of these Monday and Wednesday videos. This is just for talking football and like relevant football topics. So most of the progress will be done on Fridays, and that's why I'm doing the Fridays live com, so we can make progress. It's a bit more, I can react to it, react to packs if we get anything good. But I'm going to be playing foot drafts that day, and hopefully now that I've got some coins, we can get into doing some SBCs as well. And we'll just try and stack as many packs as we can for Fridays and just open them. I think also on Fridays they bring out the new promos on Fridays, so you'll get chances at the new players, and I think it's like kind of perfect timing. So I'll try and do those maybe after 6 p.m. I think I'll have to wait until then for the packs, at least anyway. So then it'll just make the Fridays a bit more like, you know, like if you don't want to listen to these podcast style episodes, I enjoyed making them because I like talking about football. But if you just want to see pure progress, you can just see the packs at the end of the week, and it'll be a bit nice. This episode we'll talk about international breaks, because I did try and talk about it last episode. I just didn't end up getting into it, but I do think I touched on it a bit, but just didn't get to talk about it as much as I wanted to. But now with some news coming out for the England national team, I think it was confirmed while I was recording last night that Thomas Tuchel has been appointed as the new England manager. First of all, I want to get something out of the way, in the fact that I said that in the first episode I wouldn't want him at United, and then taking the England job, there won't be any media talks about him to United now, which I don't think were true in the first place. I think it was confirmed that all of the talk was coming from the Tuchel camp rather than the United camp. But either way, that's all done, and there won't be any talks about him to United. But before I talk about him as an appointment, I think people are saying that he turned down the United job for the England job. I very highly doubt that is true. He's a manager that deserves to be coaching at club level, and I don't think he would have chosen national team football over club football. But maybe that's just how it is now. I think there might be a new trend where coaches wanting to seek glory on the national level, because I think there was also talks of Pep going to national football level. I think after he leaves from Manchester City, which they were saying at the end of next year, I think, or something, 2025. I'm not quite sure, but if he does, he might go there, and maybe that's what the trend everyone's following. If Pep wants to do it, we'll do it too. That's usually what happens in the footballing space in terms of management. But Really, I see no reason for him to have turned down the United job. I just don't think he was offered it. The United job is just too big to turn down. Manchester United is a club that's kind of taken a hit though, because it has ruined so many managers' careers. It might seem less attractive to managers, but I think managers' egos are so big that you just think you're gonna crack the code as a manager and be able to turn United around. Is such that imagine you're the guy who have turned the Manchester United downhill spiral around. You'd be like goated. Like everyone would be talking about you as the greatest manager of all time. So I do think it's still an attractive proposition for managers. On the exact Manchester United manager situation though, now that Tuchel's out of the picture, I think we're stuck in a place where the top managers don't want to ruin their reputation and come here and fail, but then the up and coming managers just aren't big enough to take a hold of the dressing room. They're just not big enough characters, like how Potter failed at Chelsea and such. And I think in a way Tuchel was probably the only available manager, like a realistic appointment, that was ready to try, but he is no longer an option. And I'm still for keeping Ten Hag, for lack of a better option, to be honest. Even now still, I don't think Tuchel was the right option, and I don't think anyone else will be. Talking Tuchel though, I know I downplayed his achievements in the first episode. I still do think he's a good manager, but just like not a Real Madrid or Manchester United or Milan caliber of manager. Like I don't think he's just like top 3 managers in the world. So I do believe he will be definitely one of the best managers coaching at national level. Because I know Nagelsmann also coaching at national level, and I think Scaloni and De La Fuente are still managing Spain and Argentina, so he'll definitely be one of the best coaches. And let me just try and back up his personal achievements. I think he won the German title and the German Cup, but I think that title was from picking up the pieces of Nagelsmann's sacking, which I think he ended up doing worse than Nagelsmann that year. But his second season that led to his sacking, he didn't do great either. But he came close to winning the Champions League with PSG, which I think alongside his actual Chelsea run that he won the Champions League is I think those are his biggest managerial achievements. And like the titles, like the Bundesliga and the PSG titles, I don't think that they're important. The main thing is that he's won a few other trophies here and there, but it's quite clear that he's a great tournament coach. And that's perfect for national team coaching, because it's always a tournament. The World Cup's a tournament, the Euros are a tournament. The only group stages and the qualifiers, they're almost guaranteed with the amount of quality in the England team. So we just need a manager who is versatile with their setup game to game. And I think the best showing of that for Tuchel was that Chelsea run. So I think he's more than capable of bringing a trophy to the English team. It will definitely be easier to watch than Southgate, at least, the football that Tuchel plays. Although he plays the back 5, I think he does play quite attacking football. He uses his wide players, but sometimes he makes a box with his wide players in his defense, and he just lets his midfielders go at it. And I think that will play to the strengths of the English team if he plays the 5-2-3, I think that he usually plays. I prefer a 4-2-3-1, as you probably already know, like a 4-3-3 attack with what I'm doing in my manager modes and the Ultimate Team series. But with a 5-back, there'll be a bit less of a defensive liability, so you might be able to get away with putting some wingers at the wing-back positions. And even Trent, people like to say he's a defensive liability. In a 5-back, he won't really be a defensive liability, and you can play him at the wing-back position. The problem is that Southgate was like, he shoehorned everyone into that Euros 11 every game, which caused players like Foden to have a bad tournament, and the football didn't suit the players. But with Tuchel, he will most likely play more high octane, more attacking football. So hopefully the players respond to that better, and they play a bit better, and we can actually try and come close to winning things. Because I think even with the Euros, like we were close to winning it, but like we didn't play well any of the games. Southgate literally got saved by, I think in the round of 16, he got saved by Bellingham, like Kane and Tony. In the semis, he got saved by Saka and Palmer, I think, and in the quarters, and then in the semis, he got saved by Watkins, I think, and then in the final we just lost, and I think that was because of Kyle Walker. So we'll get onto that in a bit. But either way, playing with a 5-2-3 or a 4-2-3-1 is still going to be hard to fit all these players into a team. Someone will have to miss out. I feel like shoehorning players in has been a problem for quite a while and was detrimental to the England golden generation back in the early 2000s. So they didn't end up winning because of that, I think, and hopefully that doesn't happen again. I will go through all those teams potentially from like 2002 onwards and talk about how they done and the players and how they got shoehorned, and I'll just go through what happened with the English teams, just recap the history a bit. But first I want to tell you how I'd line up in the 2026 World Cup, considering it's going to be in 2 years and players will have developed, gotten better. Some players will have gotten older, and some players are coming up and they might actually be world class by then. So in terms of how I would pick the lineup, I would go with Pickford at the 1. I don't think anyone can argue with that. It becomes prime Casillas when putting that England kit on, and I don't think I would replace him even if like a Pope or a Ramsdale were on top form playing in Champions League finals. Not until Pickford has multiple like bad games for England. Like up until that point, I think Pickford's just got that #1 shirt tied down. I think he performs so well and he's so vocal. It's not just his performances, it's like his passion, and I think it really fires up the fans. Well, it fires me up anyway. I love it when he gets all loud. It's entertaining more than anything, and that's all I want in the England team. I just want some entertainment after watching Southgate football for what it's been like 8 years now. Honestly, I just want to be entertained with some good football. Going on to the right back position, Walker has been our right back for I think a very long time now, but as I mentioned a few minutes ago, I alluded to, I think he's a liability. I actually don't think that he's that good of a player. I don't think he's technically gifted, and I don't think he has the best intelligence of the game. He's very experienced, don't get me wrong, playing at a high level for a long time. But I just think that he uses his pace to get out of most of the bad situations, and like he's a very pace-centered player, and I don't think he would be playing at this high level if he wasn't as fast as he was. Albeit that is still an attribute, that still is what makes him a good right back. But especially as he's going to get older now, he's probably going to lose that pace, and I think he won't be in the team in 2026. Trippier has also been in the team for quite a long time, and I think he's a good dead ball specialist, and it's always good to have one or two dead ball specialists in your team, but I think we can get that elsewhere. I think Foden's a pretty good set piece taker, and I think Rice takes the set pieces for Arsenal, so I don't think we'll call up Trippier because he'll be old as well. I think he's retired anyway. I'm pretty sure he retired, but I think he said if they need me for a call up then he'll come. But I don't think he wants to play. Well, of course he wants to play, but I don't think he minds not playing anyway. Reece James would most likely not be fit for the 2026 World Cup. It's sad to say, because when Reece James is fit and he's playing, he's a top right back, and even sometimes now when he comes back and he plays like 1 or 2 games before he gets injured again, he has a brilliant game. Like he always picks up assists. He's defensively sound. He's good physically. He's got pace on him, and he's got a bit of height too. So it's sad to say, but like Reece James probably won't be fit for the 2026 World Cup. So that really leaves you with having to play Trent there. And although people would say, and don't get me wrong, he kind of is a defensive liability, but he would be my option there if I'm not overlooking anyone. I don't think. You've got Aaron Wan-Bissaka, but he probably won't play. He's at West Ham now, and he's not a modern fullback, I don't think. Ben White usually rejects the call up anyway, so you're not going to get him there. And I don't think there's any other English right backs that are up and coming, except for maybe like Livramento. So I don't think anyone's going to be as good as Trent in the future, like in terms of in 2 years' time. So I'll probably go with Trent there. And considering it'll be a Tuchel 5 back, that won't even matter as much that he's a defensive liability if they play a 5-2-3. So I think it's most likely going to be Trent. For my formation, the two centre backs I would choose probably would be Stones, and I feel like I'd like to see Tomori. I think Stones is easily by far our best centre back. He's an important part for the best team in England and probably the world, and he has been at the top of his game quite a long time. I think he's out with an injury now, so hopefully he doesn't become injury prone, but I think he's still pretty like young, or like he's still got a few years left in him. I think he's like 30 years old now. And Tomori hasn't had the chance yet, but he's been playing well in Italy, I think. And he's got brilliant pace, so I'm all up for pace so he can help play a high line. I'm not quite sure how good he is on the ball, which makes me think that maybe we just play Maguire. He's always good for England. And in a 5-back, the central defender in a 5-back, I think with two wide centre backs covering him, he would be perfect in a 5-back. So, and he hasn't really put a foot wrong for England when he's played. He's a bit like Pickford there. When he plays for England, he plays amazingly. I think Colwill is also an option. So maybe Maguire in the centre, Stones on the right, and then Colwill on the left. Because he's left-footed, so that will be quite nice. But there's also like Gomez you can play at centre-back, but he kind of plays full-back now. Konsa is also, he's pretty solid. Guehi, he got called up to the Euros and he did play well, but he's kind of lost his form now, so I don't know how he'll be faring in 2 years. But there's options there. For me, I'd go for Stones and Tomori, maybe Colwill, and then Maguire if we're playing a 5-back. At left back, I would actually bring a fit one to the tournament, like someone that can actually play, because at the Euros we didn't have a left-footed left back for so long. We were playing Trippier there the whole time, and like you could tell he was just uncomfortable playing left back because it makes a difference. I've spoken about it, I think, in my first episode with Delo. I'd probably go with Shaw at left back if he's fit, but I feel like he won't be the same in 2 years. He might even be my centre-back pick instead, because I feel like he's transitioning into a centre-back now. He's played centre-back for United last season, or the season before, quite a long time. Like, he was part of that back line. And with his injuries, he'll probably be less susceptible to picking up injuries at centre-back. So I think he'll be fine with making that transition. I doubt Shaw will be ready for left back, but if he is and he does play there and it all goes well, then I would choose Shaw. If I was to pick someone who would probably actually be guaranteed to being fit and will probably be available at left back, is someone, this is the first time where I'm going for like potential other than like Colwill. Like, I think Lewis Hall would be a great left back. I think he's a terrific player, and I think Lewis Hall will become one of the best left backs there is. I think in terms of playing for England, I think he'll become the top left back. He'll be the go-to in 2026. There's not really any other options. I mean, there was Shaw and Chilwell, but they're all always injured. There's not really any notable left backs for England. You can play Colwell there, but I'd rather have him as a centre back option because he's tall and pacey. And plus, if we're talking about Tuchel playing like a wing back, so that if he plays wing back, it might hide his. I think he's not really the greatest defender, but going forward, he's actually amazing. So it's kind of the same with Trent on the right. So I think Lewis Hall and Trent as the wing backs would take us quite far in the 2026 World Cup. With my midfield, I would play a 6, 8 and a 10, with the 6 being Rice quite easily and the 8 either being Mainu or Bellingham, and then the 10 either Foden or Bellingham. That will be depending on form though, but I'd probably play Foden at the 10, Bellingham at the 8 and then Rice at the 6. Rice has been the best 6 in the Prem, arguably behind only Rodri, and he's able to go forward, but he's brilliant defensively and he reads the game well. So I think he'll be a solid 6 quite easily. And in 2026 he'd probably be one of the best 6s in the world. Bellingham is a great engine, so he can easily be utilized in the 8 or the 10 depending on where he plays for Madrid in the coming years. I think that will determine which he plays. And it might help decide where to put him. Mainu is another option, and I'm also a United fan, but if he isn't overplayed in these next 2 seasons, I think he can rise to the heights of those players that I just mentioned. Of course, it's completely dependent on how Man United perform and how he's utilized, but he's got the potential to play that well. Like, if you haven't watched him play, you can see last season it was quite showing that he could do that. He's fell off a bit this season, but I think that's because he's being overplayed, and I think if you manage him well, he can become a valuable asset to that England side at the bare minimum. Foden is one of the best players in the best team in the league also, again, like Stones. His last stint with England might be a reason not to play him, but I feel like he's a form player anyway, so it'll most likely be a hit and miss for him in the tournament, depending on how good he's been playing around that time. With the Tuchel system, because he plays 2 midfielders, I think 5-2-3, it'd easily have to be Rice and Bellingham in there. They're 2 pure engines, and you got a clear defensive-minded player and a clear offensive-minded player. So I think they can easily control the midfield, as with them 2 together, they're such great players. Like they've shown that Bellingham's done it in the La Liga last year and Rice is doing it in the Premier League. So they're 2 players at the top of their game in 2 of the biggest leagues, the best leagues in the world, doing it day in and day out. So yeah, that's quite obvious. So it would easily be them 2 in a 2-man pairing. Front 3 wise is hard because the right winger, personally, I'd go with Palmer there. I think he's as good as Saka is right now, but I believe in 2 years he will be the better option for the pick in the starting right wing spot. He's got so many levels, and I think he's got more goals and assists in him than Saka, but Saka does have a better work rate, and I feel like he's a bit more of a stable, like reliable player. I think you know what you'll get out of Saka. So it is a close pick, but I'd probably go Palmer. Up front, it probably has to be Watkins. Kane maybe, if he still has it. I think this will just be purely on who's playing in good form, because it's the striker. You have to have form as a striker. And if they're playing at a high level, like in a good league, so probably not Tony. Other strikers, I'm not quite sure who the options are for the England strikers. I think Tammy Abraham was, but he's gone a bit quiet. And then there's also Solanke, and maybe Morgan Rogers might turn to a player and light up the Premier League soon, because it looks like he's playing well. I think he's bagged quite a lot of goals in the under-21s, I think. So it'll be interesting who to choose, but I think it'll be between Kane and Watkins. Left wing, we really aren't spoilt for options, and I'd rather not play Foden there for what happened in the Euros. Rashford, if he ever discovers some sort of form, I feel like he's got the most goals in him out of all the left wingers. If he's playing like at his best, like he was in the 2022-23 season before the World Cup, the Qatar World Cup. There's also Sancho, but these are mainly ifs because of what like United done to them. So it's quite hard to clearly say that they're going to be the picks for the left wing. Other than those, I think the main options have to be Grealish or Gordon. I think out of those 5 players, I would probably go for Gordon. He's got an exceptional work rate and he's been playing really well for Newcastle, at least last season he was. I do like Grealish though, and I think he would be useful for certain games. And all these players that I'm naming, like all the second, third options, I'd use the friendlies to find out what these players are about, like all these peripheral options, the backups. But I feel like Grealish could play well in certain games. I just prefer the pace of Gordon, but I wouldn't mind playing either. Um, so that's how I would line up, and then you have the 5-2-3, how maybe Tuchel will line up. But I think we're out of time now. Got veered into a different topic again. Just entered into talking about a 2026 World Cup starting 11. But next episode, I think we'll actually try and talk about the international break and like national team football. I know we've literally talked about it in the last 2 episodes, but I actually want to go talk about what I was thinking to talk about, because I just find an international break annoying, and I don't think it's very useful playing all these friendlies. It just puts the players at jeopardy, and it just ends up ruining the league football when the players come back from international break. Don't know if it's like that in other countries, but in England, I definitely don't think anyone likes the international break. I know in like the South American countries, I think people love their country and they love the international break, but in England, I don't think anyone likes the break, from who I know at least. It's also probably mainly because we don't end up doing anything in the national team competitions, but I also think the past few years, because of Southgate's tactic, it's always been a boring game. Even if you win like 3-0, it's just a boring game. But for now, we've made a few upgrades to the team. We brought Bruno Guimaraes in. We finished Gravenberch's Evo. We started Ben White's Evo to get some pace up. And I think this is the team that we're going to play with for a while. But that's all for now. I'll see you next time. Farewell, my friends.